it was a story basically about a young girl who worked in a shop and was trying to get apprenticed to a very prestigious, like, magical house. And that one felt like it was missing something. And I realized what it was missing was the Great British Bake Off. And so I st-
Welcome back to Angie and Christie Right Now. Today we're joined by an award-winning storyteller whose imagination bridges galaxies, genres, and now realms of romance. In addition to being a copy editor and a freelance writer, our guest is a co-editor of the acclaimed Escape Pod science fiction podcast. She's also the author of the Chilling Effect trilogy, which was shortlisted for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. Her writing has appeared in Uncanny Magazine, Magic: The Gathering, Nightmare Magazine, and numerous anthologies. Using the pen name Lia Amador, our guest is now casting a spell in a whole new direction with her contemporary fantasy romance debut, Witch You Would. The sparkling tale is set in a magically modern Miami, where a young witch competes on a spellcasting reality show and finds herself partnered with the one man she can't stand, but who might just be her perfect match. We can't wait to talk about her journey from space operas to spellbinding romance and all the magic in between. We are honored to welcome Valerie Valdes to the podcast. Valerie, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Anytime. Is there anything that you would like to add to the introduction?
I think that's it. I mean, I guess I play video games almost every night on Twitch. That's the other thing I do. I know. I have a busy
I
life.
You have a busy life, but like you fit right in. I'm telling you, like me and Angie we're like, oh, this is so cool. So we also want to say that Valerie is part of our collaboration with Strong Women, Strange Worlds. And that's where we found Valerie because her reading of her book was so amazing that we said, like, come on over. We need to interview you. So fantastic. So the first question that we always ask our authors is, how did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
So, my writing journey is a long one. Sometimes people discover it very late. First grade, I was assigned, write a short story. And in first grade, what do they expect from you, right? It's not going to be a lot. No, I wrote 2 pages about aliens stealing my skin. My mom still has it, front and back of notebook paper, and I have just been a writer ever since. I definitely wrote a lot more poetry going through kind of my adolescent years. And then I came back around to writing fiction more. I did it in college a little bit in creative writing classes, but NaNoWriMo got me back in 2004. And yeah, I've been doing fiction ever since.
Yeah, it's funny how NaNoWriMo kind of like drew a lot of people in because it did me as well. Like, I think the 50,000 words is so doable.
Oh yeah, yeah. The second year I did it, I was municipal liaison. I stepped up and I was like, "Let's go. We're gonna do this." Organized events everywhere, showed up to lots of write-ins, and it wasn't until several years in that I started really winning. I think it would have been my third or fourth year, but from then on, that was it. I was hooked. Chilling Effect was my 11th NaNoWriMo. 11th? No, sorry, 7th NaNoWriMo. 11th. No, no, I was right. No, 11th. 11th. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the
Oh,
one.
wow, that's a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. I was in ML for 17 years until it died. RIP Nano.
I know.
It's so sad that it's gone. Yeah.
I know. Something needs to pick it up and do other things. But I think the people have organized too, and they do it their own selves, really.
We still have our Discord in Atlanta and we're still going strong. So
Exactly. So that's kind of cool. But so you go through high school and knowing that you're going to go to college for some kind of creative, are you writing poetry at that time? Are you writing?
at the time I was really focused on writing poetry. I had started with friends in high school, a literary magazine for the school. And so we were publishing poetry mostly. And I don't know if we had space for fiction. It was a very small zine. Went into college, intending actually to study film. I was very interested in film writing, screenwriting, TV writing, all that stuff. And ultimately shifted into just English studying because I really like reading too, as we do. So that was the degree I ended up with instead, but took ton of film classes, screenwriting classes, TV writing classes, the whole nine yards. And I cannot recommend TV writing enough as something for any short story writer and novel writer to pursue because the focus on structure is very helpful, I think, for a
Mhm.
lot of people who maybe don't think structurally necessarily. It's just a good way to organize it. I think that's part of the appeal of stuff like Save the Cat for
Yeah.
people, is that it does kind of create a structure that your brain maybe can understand, and you don't have to stick with it. It's not mandatory. There are no rules, only guidelines, only suggestions, only tools for your toolbox, but it can help.
I think also like there's the economy of words because I feel like when you write for TV or a film, there's only so many pages that you can fill, and then they say like
Mhm,
it's too long. Whereas you have a wide open, like I mean, you're writing a novel, especially
mhm.
sci-fi fantasy, like you can go as far as you like. I mean, let's not talk about George R. R. Martin, you know? So like so if you study the TV and the script and everything, like there's like, you know, like even in Save the Cat, like by page 50, you have to have this. On page this, you have to, you know, so like that would be really, did you find that helped you too?
Yeah, I did. And also, I think some of the best advice that I got was out of my TV writing teacher, honestly, because he came to us with sort of very salient points. Things like if you want something to be funny, because in that class we were writing spec scripts, which was essentially we were writing a script for an existing TV show.
Okay.
And so we had characters to work with, we had actors who were already portraying these roles. And he was like, if you're going to say something that's going to be dramatic, if it's going to be funny, if it's going to be whatever it is, it has to be intrinsic to the thing. Because if it's not, you can't be sitting here picturing a movie in your head of your actor delivering a line in a very specific way. The person reading the script is not going to have that. They're going to do it however they do it. They're going to read it however they read it. So whatever you're doing has to be intrinsically funny, intrinsically dramatic, intrinsically whatever it is that you're trying to do, or it's not going to work. And so that is something that I've been able to carry through to my writing. Or trying to anyway, obviously, but just stuff like that, where it was like learning this not in a fiction writing class, but in a class about writing a kind of fiction. So the
I
rules
love that.
translate.
I
Mhm.
love that because that means like if the words that you choose are meant to be sarcastic, then they should feel
Yeah.
sarcastic. So you don't have to say she said sarcastically at the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she just
Mhm.
said it and it was
Mhm.
sarcastic. So that's a great advice. I
Yeah.
love that.
Mhm.
Fantastic. And it's definitely picky, choosing the right words and the dialogue and everything. I love that. That's the other thing too, right? Like TV and film, you're dialogue based. So
Yeah.
you're like you have to get really good at dialogue, which
Yep.
in my for me anyways, that makes the character because the way that the character talks, that's their voice, that's them, that's whatever. And we'll talk about it later, but in which you would, those are awesome. So
Yeah. Thank you.
great character based.
It was very punny.
Oh yes, I we are a pun-based household here, and so and on our Twitch stream as well, we have actually a pun hell graphic that as soon as somebody drops a pun in chat or if one of us makes a pun, we have to put it up. That's it. We're in pun hell now. Welcome everybody. And then it may go on for several minutes, unfortunately, because that's
I,
just how we roll.
I love it. I didn't know there was that many puns about magic, but they all worked and it was awesome. And read the book, you'll love it. So then while you're in college,
Mhm.
you're writing, obviously you're in English, you're writing anyways because you've got
Yeah.
tons of things to do for schoolwork, but are you
Mhm.
writing for yourself too on the side?
Not so much just because I had two jobs. And so on top of a full course load, I was working full time, basically two part-time jobs. One was doing publication work, which was very cool for financial aid. And that involved putting together the brochures, writing the copy, trying to explain to people how to do scholarship stuff, and also working on the website a little bit. And that helped me again, kind of structurally, like how do you communicate stuff to people? How do you explain things to people? And I usually tell people that since I have a degree in English, I say I have a degree in reading things, understanding them, and explaining them to other people. And I feel like that's really invaluable, especially in society today. But I didn't have a ton of time to do writing for funsies. I did a poetry thesis, so I wrote a book of poetry with different advisors, and otherwise, I mean, I tried to get good grades. I did my best.
Yeah, just passing along and moving along.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
And
once
my other job was at night at a movie theater. So it was concession, serving popcorn, serving sodas, running the projectors. It was a lot of back and forth there.
to be
I
honest,
love that you were able to get a job actually writing.
yeah,
Starting with
It did work out. I think the publication stuff worked out for me in the end. But we can talk about my day job and my weird transition next, I guess.
after that's right. So when do you sit down and say like, okay, like I've graduated, you probably have three jobs because like you seem to have a huge work ethic. And now you say, okay, it's time for me. I need to write something.
Yeah, that was when NaNoWriMo really came in,
Gotcha.
because I think I had burned out basically. I was in an online poetry critique forum, and it was a pretty vicious place, and it really demoralized me about poetry writing, and I'd stepped away from that, thought, maybe it's not for me, maybe I'm not any good, can I get my skills up? Sure, skill issue, let's go. We got a level, but at the same time, I was really just so burnt out from school, so overworked, and trying to find a job as you do when you graduate. It's either that or you're going to go to grad school. And I was so burned out on school that grad school was not something I really was able to even comprehend at that
Yeah.
point. But got a day job working for a tiny newspaper, and
Nice.
from that ended up working as an office manager for test prep. And so that was another, be organized, answer phones, do paperwork, understand computers. And then I also taught students. I taught classes in test prep. I did private tutoring for that, and ultimately got a job where I'm working now. I was
Nice.
hired as copy editor for a real estate appraisal firm. And so copy editing, I was like, yay, this is what
I
I
can do
love. This is what I do. Yeah. And then several months into that, they were like, you seem pretty sharp. Do you want to be an appraiser? And I was like, okay, sure. So I've been an appraiser now for almost 20 years.
Oh, wow. It's so funny how you just kind of fall into some jobs, and but it still has things that you love, which is like writing. And so you
Mhm,
still have to get to
mhm.
do what you love, but it's in a
Yeah.
completely different way than you thought it was probably going to be.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With that first Nano, like how did you find Nano and start writing that first book? How did that come up?
I wish I could remember actually, because it's been so long and I have no idea if like a friend was doing it, or, if I saw an ad for show up here and we're going to do writing, or I genuinely cannot remember. That part of my life was very busy, and my brain is hollow. It's like a basketball hoop. The memories go in and they just come right back out. So I don't remember how I fell into it. All I do remember was that at the time we were going to this really great restaurant called Joffrey's, which was a coffee shop and a restaurant. I think they have multiple locations, but there was one like right by us. It was the best burgers of my life. Have never found a better burger after they closed. That was the end of good burgers for me.
No.
And sorry, everybody else ever who's made a burger. Yeah, basic. But Joffrey's was amazing. It was such a great vibe, and they had like this amazing breakfast. Whatever, we would go there, we would get coffee, we would get snacks, we would get food, whatever it was, and we would just write. That was where we held our write-ins, and the person running it, uh, I they dropped out after the first year, so there was a vacancy. I took over and just kept it going. And we eventually, when Joffrey's closed, we moved to a Panera. And but then at that point, we also started doing year-round write-ins. So every single Sunday, I'd show up at Panera, get myself something to eat, get myself a soda that I could refill repeatedly over the course of the 3 to 4 hours that we just all sat there, and we would write every Sunday.
It's cool that you were able to find an in-person group. Like,
Mhm,
that's one thing that I don't have. Like Christy and I, we found each other on a
mhm,
online forum for writers and kind of met all our critique partners that way. And so we're like spread out over the country. But
mhm,
it would be nice to be able to go to like a, restaurant every week and just
mhm.
start, right? Wouldn't it? Like,
It would be so nice. So, so
yeah.
nice.
It was great. I cannot emphasize enough. I think part of the importance of it that is more difficult to accomplish virtually, not impossible, more difficult, is that you are transplanting yourself somewhere away from your house. You're not looking around at your laundry that you need to fold, or your kitchen that you need to do dishes or whatever. Your family is, in theory, not standing behind you with problems that you need to solve for them. And that said, I did usually have to take my kids with me into the write-ins, but my mom would come sometimes to basically babysit there, and then I would feed her. She would hang out with like my son, and I would write while she took him for walks or whatever. It was, or she would stay at my house with him. And so, and this was only when my husband was working, to be clear. This is not a situation where my husband's not pulling his own weight, but I just want to call out my mom for that, because she sacrificed a lot of her weekends for me over the course of my entire life. So,
I love that
That's
you have the support of your parents. That's great. Like
Mhm.
that's awesome. Did
yeah.
you
So how did so that first book, like your
Mhm.
first book, so do you have any, I'm assuming you have some shelf books or do you
Oh
have,
yeah.
yeah? So
Yeah.
how did you know, like, you started writing is sci-fi
Chilling Effect, yeah, was the first
stuff
one
that,
that I really was like focusing on.
okay, so
Um,
how did you fall into that? Was it something that you always read or did you just like, how did the idea come about for that story?
Oof, that's several questions. I always read sci-fi. Yes, always loved sci-fi and fantasy. Grew up reading. Obviously, my first story was sci-fi. It was definitely something that I was super into, both from finding it in libraries and from other people in my family who read it. Particularly my uncle. He was very into sci-fi. Gave me his like entire collection of books at one point, just old, 60s, 70s sci-fi, that I was very happy to read through. And our my school libraries tended to have good sci-fi and fantasy. I loved all the stuff that I found. Also was a very big Nancy Drew reader, TBH, and Perry Mason and other crime stuff. Um, Law and Order, very Paladin. But for Chilling Effect, the idea for that actually started as a dream, which was very weird. And then the first chapter that I wrote it as a short story, and it was like chapter 4 of the book as it stands now. But it was very much just like sort of standard setup. Someone at a bar, their life is going wrong, and then the wrong guy hits on them, and they're like, "Oh no, I am not here for this right now." Guy will not take no for an answer. Girl throws a punch. Bar fight ensues. And then the guy tries to blow up the space station. And it was very just like, well, that escalated quickly, but I thought it was fun as a short story. And everyone was like, whoa, hold on a second. First of all, how did she end up here? Second of all, now what? What's going on with this girl? What's what? And I was like, oh, you want more?
more?
And so I turned that into a novel. It it went through many iterations, lots of edits. Wrote basically the first half during Nano, took a lot longer to finish the second half, rewrote it pretty extensively, and then got an offer for it from Angry Robot. And
Nice.
then yeah, and then took that to the agents I was querying and had kind of a couple of agents to choose from. Picked my current agent, Curiouser Robinson, amazing, very sharp, much love, and shopped it around. And at auction, Harper Voyager got it. So, and then it went through more edits, and now here it is.
Amazing. So but like, I mean, that's not the first book that you're writing though, right?
No, my goodness. No, I can't even remember the first book that I wrote for Nano. And like I said, I think I maybe got 10,000 words into it, 12,000 words. It was not, I did not win that year. My first book that I finished from NaNoWriMo was not Chilling Effect. It was a different book about a Latino handyman, but he basically fixed magical problems kind of thing. And so it was very kind of like, there was a reality show on TLC or HGTV or something like that, and it was just this big burly guy that went around fixing people's houses, basically. They would call him and they would be like, "I have this house emergency. I've got mold in my walls, whatever." And he would come in, tear everything out, fix it up, talking to the TV the whole time, explaining what he was doing, explaining what the problems were, yada yada. And I was like, "What if that, but the problem is you've got like baby dragons in your attic, you know?" So I wrote that into a whole book. It was not good. And yeah, but that was my first finished one. And maybe someday something
I
like
love
that will
that
happen.
premise. You gotta write that now. I'm totally hooked and I want to see that. Like I want to see that.
Maybe convert it into a romance.
Could
Convert it
be,
into
could be.
romance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like a TV show because every week there could be something different. Like I'm okay with that
Hmm.
too. So was the Chilling Effect the first book that you actually queried?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, first book that I was like, I feel like this has legs. I'm really into it. I love this book. I love these characters. I worked really, 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 really hard on it, and I think it could go somewhere. So let's see what we can do. It was, I think, around the time that like Ready Player One was very big, and so I thought, something that still has a lot of video game references that are a little more, the cables are buried a little bit more instead of being very overt. It's like, haha, if you get it, you get it. But I did think that it could go somewhere, and so I tried querying it, and it worked out.
Love that.
books that came after, are they part of the same series
Yes,
or?
yeah. So two of there, it's a trilogy. So the sequel to Chilling Effect was Prime Deceptions, then came Fault Tolerance, which concluded the trilogy. And then my fourth book, though, is a complete standalone. It's called Where Peace is Lost. And so that one was me analyzing feelings about Star Wars, and specifically the Jedi and Obi-Wan, kind of living in the desert for a long time. Because at the time, this was pre the Obi-Wan show. This was when we didn't have all the kind of canon backstory stuff that has been established now. And so I just kind of backed it out to this notion of like, all right, well, if your faction lost the space war and they took away your people, and now there's a bounty on your head, and you're hiding out somewhere. What happens if problems come to you and you have to step up?
Nice.
Because that, again, that sort of is the way that Star Wars works. You
Yeah.
know, A New Hope, and he's living in the desert and problems come to him and he has to step up. But I was like, if this person is the main character, how would that look? And then how would a sort of Jedi group that is less devoted to a sort of Buddhist kind of approach to life and more dedicated to an ethic of care and helping other people? I was like, what would that look like? How would that be different? And so just went through a lot of iterations, and this is what came out.
It's almost like a what if for the Star Wars world. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
neat. I like that.
Yeah. And it's not I just want to be clear that it's not like a fix it fic, right? Because I think that we're in an era, and this is not a judgment, by the way, but we are in an era where a lot of fanfics are getting the file numbers scraped off and they're being republished as original fic. And I'm not saying I have anything wrong with that, but I definitely was at a much like greater distance. This was not a fix it fic, but it was a fix it thought experiment, I guess.
Yeah,
But moved a little farther away from the original, so.
I like it. Okay, we're gonna take a total turn into the next book that you write, which how do you go from that to, oh, let's do a fantasy contemporary romance?
Yeah.
Like I mean, me and Angie read the book, loved the characters, fell in love with both of them. Awesome main characters. How does that happen? Like, how does that happen?
So Witchy Wood is a real it's a humdinger of a story too. It actually started as a secondary role fantasy. I was writing it, and it took place in a sort of like Regency era Caribbean. Yeah, totally fantasy, 100%. And the original book had this entire like caste system based on mask wearing, and you can imagine that post 2020, that was definitely not going to work. So I took that out entirely, and then it was a story basically about a young girl who worked in a shop and was trying to get apprenticed to a very prestigious like magical house so that she could work for them, invent spells for them, make stuff for them, and all of her kind of catty competition with the other apprentices that are trying to get on board. And that one felt like it was missing something. And I realized what it was missing was the Great British Bake Off. And so I started watching the show and I was like, you know what? What if actually this is literally a competition, but in a secondary world fantasy context in which everyone is trying to be the best apprentice essentially and win this competition and get to work with this prestigious person. That's the version of the book that we shopped around, sent it on submission, and it did not sell. It was just like, well, I don't know. It's all right, I guess. And then my editor at Harper Voyager came back. This is Tessa, and was like, "What if contemporary though?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay. I could do contemporary." So I just rewrote it as contemporary and made it a TV show instead of this other kind of competition in this faux Regency setting. And it worked perfectly, honestly. Inspired idea, very easy transition. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I love the characters. So how did it become, was it originally going to be both the dual point of views, or had it only
It was one point, it was just Penelope's POV initially, and because part of it was this that the like fake love square was always a part of it. And that's something I think is on the back cover, so I don't feel too bad talking about it. This notion that she is this shop girl who, in correspondence, has been pretending to be her boss, answering letters that turned personal, except then she never corrected the mistake that it was her and not her boss this entire time. And then the dude shows up and she's like, "Oh God, what have I done? Now what?" But in the book, he's also, again, he's in disguise, and this is the original book again that never went anywhere, but he actually appeared both as himself and as, this fake persona. She falls in love with the fake persona in the original book, and he doesn't know that's her. At one point, she says mean things about her old boss, who was a terrible person, but he
Yes.
gets he gets weirdly defensive about it, and she's like, "All right, buddy, what's going on here?" So that was the original book. Of course, this one plays out very differently. I removed the one leg of the fake love square, and so he knows it's her the entire time. She just doesn't know that he is the same person that she both loves and hates. And so, fake love triangles. Do not love the love triangle. I'm not a fan of the devil's geometry, but but nonetheless, the fake one I do like. And yeah, that's what we got here.
No, it's probably not a spoiler. I mean, because they do meet, but like her expression when he walks in, and she's
It's to die for.
I love to set up that, the beginning, set up for that
Mhm.
particular moment was so funny.
Yep,
Actually,
yep,
the whole book is funny. Like, I mean, I
yep.
enjoyed reading it. Like the puns are hysterical. The interactions between the two of them are hysterical. The situations that you put them in are so funny. And the whole thing is just funny. But how, okay, this is something like I grappled at the beginning because you talk about magic openly.
Mhm.
Like it's an
Yeah,
open thing in this
yep.
world. And then I'm like, because like all the other books that you read about magic, it's like, oh, it's
Mhm.
this underground little thing and nobody knows
Yep.
about it, blah, blah, blah. But this is very open. It's out in
Mhm.
the open, but not everybody seems to be able to do magic.
Mhm.
How did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, so this is something that I actually wrote an entire essay about this on my blog because I was like, oops, I did not the Kit Rosha Roca Rosha. It occurs to me, I've only read their name and didn't have not
You
pronounced it
didn't
out
know
loud.
that?
Whoops. But they talk about something they call dropping the anvil. And I have a friend who also talks about the notion of writing for the loose readers and the close readers. And this is something that I apparently just like whiffed on that book because the idea is that anyone can do magic. Anyone can, just like anyone can do math or anyone can do science. But
Mhm.
do we all do math? Do
No.
we all do science? Anyone can fix their car, but can you though? Anyone can change a tire, but can you though?
Mhm.
And so that's essentially how math works in this magic, I mean, works in this world, is the idea that, yeah, anyone can do it. Anyone can buy a charm at the Walmart and, put it in their house and use it. But are you going to be like actually building your own charms, literally casting your own spells in your stove? Are you going to just do the microwave meal equivalent of popping the thing, frozen thing in the microwave? Or are you actually going to cook the meal yourself? And so that was where I was approaching it from. I feel like a lot of books treat magic as something that is genetic, is inherited. You get it from your parents, you get it from wherever. And no shade on that. It always kind of squicks me a little bit where I'm just like, yeah, but isn't that a little weird to be gatekeeping that? Can we not just have everybody can do it? And the fact that I didn't explain it well enough, because there is that presumption, right? That, oh, it's got to be something that's inherited, or it's got to be something that is very carefully taught, it's guarded, it's secret, it's minimized. It's like, no, no, anyone can do it. It's everywhere. But just because it's everywhere, it doesn't mean everyone's going to do it.
Think not explaining it made it just, part of the world. It was just
Yeah.
part of the world building for me. And
Yeah.
so it just fit,
Mhm.
and then one of the things I liked was when, she would just go up to different things, like when the warming pan or the cooling pan wasn't working, and just fix it.
Yeah. Just, yeah.
Or just like looking at the stat, just trying to figure out how it works. I just liked her
Mhm.
curiosity about the
Yeah.
magic, but I also liked the way you
Mhm.
just made it be normal. Like it was
Yeah.
just a normal part of the world.
Yeah, Penelope is definitely the person that sees the book in the wrong place at Barnes and Noble and has to shelve it. Like she is absolutely a, oh, this is a thing that needs fixing and I can fix it and I'm gonna fix it. So
Like the thing that I love that you did also about like your book is that you didn't prolong that Penelope didn't know that Leandro Presto was actually Gil. Because I
yeah.
feel like sometimes like, like you could have kept that for
Mhm.
such a long time, but it made the story so much more interesting that she actually knew who he was right away. And then they became like this unit and they
Mhm.
started like working together. And that I think was like even more interesting than if you had kept it, like a suspense, like, oh, when are they gonna this was so much better. I love that part of it, that they actually both knew who each other were. That was great. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed
I,
that.
I think a lot of romance novels have sort of tropes and structures and ways that they approach different information stuff.
Hmm.
And I think that one of the things that often happens in romance is that you will have these kinds of misunderstandings that can just take the entire length of the book. And sometimes those misunderstandings are what like the whole entire climax hinges around, right? And so this was not a story where I wanted that to be the case. And part of it is because this is a story in which somebody is ostensibly falling in love with a fake person. And that is something that is really hard to manage. And I wanted to be very careful about that. I wanted it to be clear that he is both of these people, actually. That even though this is a persona, it's still aspects of himself that are just magnified, intensified, that he is still kind of a goon and a himbo in his real life, even though he's also a very erudite PhD. But because we all contain multitudes.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, yeah, I didn't want her to completely and exclusively fall in love with this one person because in a way she was already in love with him as himself, which
Yeah,
made it extra weird. And so there was a lot to navigate there, and that was a way that I wanted to approach it, was just like, no, we're gonna fix this as quickly as possible, but it doesn't actually fix all their problems. So
Yeah.
hardly, hardly. But the other thing too, like, is that you everything that you just described there, you put into his role, like his character, like he has issues with like the fact
mhm,
that he's like not presenting as a so
mhm.
that was great. Like, I mean, I enjoyed it so much because
Yeah.
like I think what I'm getting to is like these two characters are real. Like they
Yeah.
feel real. They react like real people. Well,
Mhm.
okay, real people who know how to do magic, but like real people would, like if you were presenting as somebody that you're not the whole time,
Mhm.
if you're falling in love, you would be like, oh my God, she doesn't really know me. And
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's part of also the fact that this is a reality show, right? They're already both pretending to be people that they're not for the purposes of television. And so it's just an extra layer of that. It's an extra layer of dealing with appearances, illusions, fake smiles, all of that sort of stuff, and how it all comes together to, how can you trust this? How can you trust the feelings that you're having when they're potentially built on a house of lies?
love it.
It was really cute and yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I really, really did. It was like one of those reads where like you just pick up the book and you just like you get through it. You know what I mean? Like you just don't want to stop. It's cute, it's adorable. The characters are well written. You write really well, so it was easy
Thank you.
to read. So it was
Yes.
just like it was a fun book. Like I totally enjoyed. I
Happy
have some
life.
questions about how you wrote it though, because I'm always curious because Angie is a pantser, I'm a plotter. How do you work? Do you plot some things? Do you plot nothing? Do you just sit down and nano it?
Ah, I'm a plotter. I'm 100% sorry. Sorry, Angie. Sorry. I respect Pantsers 100% though, because improvising is absolutely part of the writing process. Even if you're a plotter, even if you know exactly what you're writing, even if you have a 30,000 word story Bible like the one that I have. I
Like
was I was looking at my yeah, no, I for book 2, I was going through it and I was like, how many words are in my notes file? 33,000. I was like, "Oh, Valerie, you might have a little bit of a problem." But that's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's
so it
fine.
comes at the end and you need that because especially when you start writing new like other books in the
Mhm.
series.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually just the one for book 2. I don't know how many I have in book 1. I didn't check that one. That was a whole separate story Bible. I know it's the worst. I do have both of them though that I have to open because I do have to reference things back because book 2 obviously takes place in the same world, and so a lot of the stuff is still the same. But yeah, I was just like, oh, I'm a plotter. I always and I usually use the snowflake method. That's generally the way that I approach it. Before I start plotting, when I'm starting to like generate ideas and stuff like that, I have sort of what I call a Katamari approach, which if you've ever seen the video game Katamari Damacy, you're basically this little dude and you're rolling a ball around and you're picking up stuff. And
I love that.
that's the point of it. You just pick up stuff, and then when you've picked up enough stuff, your dad, who is the king of all cosmos, is like, "Good job, son," and then takes this ball of stuff and yeets it into the sky, and it becomes a star. And that's sort of how my initial approach is. I just start rolling stuff around. And once it has gotten enough mass, I have a notes file where I just keep all my notes in. Then I start organizing it. I put headings on. And then eventually I'm like, okay, then I start snowflaking. I've got my one sentence, sort of premise. I've got my one paragraph. And then I start expanding that. I get my blurb. So I have my pitch, like back of the book blurb. I expand that into a synopsis. I expand that into a chapter outline. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I go through that whole process, and that's
That's
usually
really
how my
cool
brain works.
though. I like how, like, I mean, that's a different way of outlining than I do. And that's really cool because by the time that you're done, you have your blurb, your synopsis, your chapter. Like, that's really cool.
Yep, because then that way I can just send all that stuff to whoever needs it. And so
That's
I've
so
already
smart.
pre-written it. Haha, that's the
I
trick.
see it. I have to like cobble it all together after
Exactly.
one.
Yeah, the trick to writing blurbs, friends. Do it before you write the book, because then you don't give a crap about what you leave out or what you've missed. It's like it's very easy to be basic about stuff when you've got none of the details written yet.
I love that. That's what Angie, our next book, that's how we're doing it for 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Can I tell you how excited I was to read your, like, maybe the last paragraph when all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a book
Yep,
too.
working on it right now. And if you thought
Awesome.
Penelope was a type A personality, her sister is a lot. Yeah.
That's so cool.
What if type
Ooh.
A but also gremlin? Like it's very yeah. She's a
Ooh.
very fun character. I'm enjoying it a lot. And so is her love
Oh,
interest. So yeah.
I really, really like that. So if you could say like one thing that you would like the people, a person picks up your book, which you would,
Mhm.
reads it, and then finishes it, closes it, puts it on the like bedside table, whatever. What
Mhm.
do you want them to like be feeling at that point? Like what would be the like the greatest joy for you if this person felt
I think I want them to feel happy, hopeful. I think that at the end of the book, and I think this is the case for a lot of romance novels, right? You want to have this feeling that these people are going to be okay, that they're going to have a happy life, and it maybe isn't going to be perfect, and it maybe isn't going to be ideal, but it's going to be happy because they have each other. And I think that's sort of the vibe that I want to leave this with, because we're in a world right now that's real tough, y'all, and I definitely am still writing escapist fantasy. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not. There are romance novels that do a much more thorough and better job of exploring societal issues. Courtney Milan, how she manages it every time, woo, just sticks that landing. Love it. But I'm not super grappling that with that stuff. What I am grappling with more is like income inequality, these notions of what constitutes success for the sort of millennials and zillennials, whatever, Zoomers, whatever you want to call them, who are growing up in this world where the access to past to success is very limited. And so that is sort of the vibe that I'm writing through here is that even if you thought that you'd be able to have a certain kind of life based on what your parents had, based on what your grandparents had, maybe you can't. Maybe that's not the world we live in, but you can still be happy. You can still have your friends. You can still have romance. It can still work out. Fingers
mission accomplished,
crossed.
I think. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's how I felt when I finished reading it.
can you let us know if you kind of gave a little bit of a spoiler, but what are you working on now?
I am working on the sequel to Witchy Wood. It is currently titled, and because Witchy Wood used to be called Made You Look, which is the name of the show in the book, but then the publisher wanted to change the title to something else, and this was what we settled on. So book two is tentatively titled Witch Is Mine, and it is the story of Penelope's sister who has moved back to Miami after her life falls apart and is attempting to rebuild a new life. She ends up living with her high school rival and they engage in a magical dating competition together. It's not like a competition like this. It's basically just a bet. It's like, I bet I could hook up with somebody in a relationship way faster than you can.
Wow,
Yeah.
that'll be fun.
Love it. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I've got covers in my inbox looking good. Very excited, very hyped.
Love
So
it.
just
Love
Do
it.
you
finishing that
have
one up.
like a date, like a tentative date yet for when it's
I don't. I'm sorry. I wish I did. So no idea. But as soon as I know, I'll be putting it all over socials. So
yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. So maybe let us know where to find you on the internet so they can look that.
yep. You can go to valerievaldes.com and you can also catch me on Twitch. Our stream is called The Kids Are Asleep, which is when we were streaming 5 years ago, but kids get bigger. And so now it's like, are they asleep though? Are they?
Also, everyone, look at the description box, click on that link, and go buy Lia Amador's book, which you would, and it's already out. And also, like, in her social media and follow her so that you can get news on when the next book is going to come out. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video so that you can, get more from us. And we just want to thank everyone for coming on, especially Valerie Valdes, aka Lia Amador, for coming on the show. And you were so much fun, and your book is fabulous. Your book is perfect. And if you like space opera, she also has that as well. So if you're nerds like we are, you will totally love her book. And we just want to say thank you for coming on, and we really appreciate you.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was delightful.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.